Very few people are willing to endure the pain, the sacrifice, and due diligence to be successful.
Chicago Bears fans, we back with another banger. Today I'm talking about my big board for the Chicago Bears in the 2023 NFL Draft. This is different from what we usually see on this channel with the perfect NFL Draft. I'm going to have a picture of my guy, and then I'm going to have other possibilities and scenarios behind that guy, showing different ways we can take these picks. And I'm going to start off with the first pick, getting straight into this thing, because for number 9, I think it's really 3 ways I would go with this. And number 1, if Jalen Carter falls, Chicago Bears fans, I understand the red flags, but you truly have to trust in your coaching staff, in that system, that you guys can get him in a place where he's strictly focused on football. You're getting the best out of Jalen Carter, and I think he's an essential need on that defensive line. Now, understand, in this draft, we're going offensive and defensive line heavy because we got to rejuvenate this entire thing. So that's my number 1 possibility. Number 2, Paris Johnson. I think Paris Johnson is a long tackle, athletic tackle, can work on his technique a bit, but I think you get him in here. Justin Fields is having a lot more time to pass the ball. Justin Fields is an electric runner. We don't want to see that for the entirety of his career. So now, once we have that, I believe this is stout. We could play him at left tackle. Even if it comes down to it, we could play him at right tackle. And I'm going to talk about some other positions on this line, because I think beyond that, left guard is possibly somewhere I would attack. Cody White here, I think you can kick him in the center, or either we can draft a starting center later on in this thing. But that's just one of my possibilities. My number 3 guy, Peter Skoronski. And, a lot of Bears fans that I've talked to, they don't like the fit of Peter Skoronski at this pick because you see him as a guard. I am on that short list of people who still believe Peter Skoronski is a tackle. I think you plug him and play him wherever you need him. And that's why I really would take him over a guy like Paris Johnson. I understand Paris Johnson. They're both good. Me saying I'm taking a guy is not just knocking and bashing the other guy. But I really like Peter Skoronski, and I think he has that versatility. You say he's a guard, I say he's a tackle. If it really even came down to it, he can play any position on the offensive line. That technique, that translates. And you understand the arm length, that may get him in some tough situations, some tough spots. But when your technique is good, I've seen tackles with all of the size, if not more than enough size. Without that technique, you're going to be on an island. You're going to have a long day. So getting into my 4th possibility, because outside of this realm, I think you trade back. If Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson, and Jalen Carter are off the board, I'm going to trade back. I look at a guy like Lucas Van Ness. I think you can use a corner opposite Jalen Johnson, but I don't think there's value in taking that with that 9th pick. Let's just add something else, because there's teams hungry to move up, potentially for a Will Levis, potentially for one of those corners, any type of player they want, potentially even Bijan, if we really want to tell the truth. Now, so that's what I have for that 9th pick. And getting into this next pick, this is where it gets a bit more interesting. I think this is a perfect spot. Now understand, you got 54 and 61. So this is kind of, you may see some similar possibilities and scenarios in this. But in my mock draft that I previously had for Chicago, I had Tyreek Stevenson. I think a lot of teams are woken up about Tyreek Stevenson, and him being at 54 may be a slight, that may be something that's not there to be had. But still going to put him up, still have his picture right here. This is the guy that I would ideally take. I think he's a press man corner, one of the better man corners in this draft. Big, physical, my type of guy that I want in this system. Now, getting into the next picks is where it gets kind of interesting. Had Andre Carter here, and a lot of people say they didn't like his Senior Bowl performance, didn't like his production this year at Army. I think he still has all of the traits and what it takes to be an edge. Of course, he can add some play strength. I think that's the number 1 thing right now, add that play strength. But I think he's athletic. I'm not really looking at his combine and things of that nature, but I'm looking at his tape more so, and I like the tape. I think in this system, you just need pass rushers, and you need bigger pass rushers, because this is more of a 4-3. We're not going to see that traditional outside rush in. So that's why I think that, and you know, of course, he can also be a rush in a certain system, but if he bulks up just a bit, adds strength, no problem with putting his hand in the dirt. Now, another guy I want to talk about that I didn't pick in my last mock draft, watched a little bit more of his film, and that's Adetomiwa Adebawore. Chicago Bears fans, you really like him, and I think it's interesting because if you can get Adebawore and Skoronski, now listen, I understand you know, you may feel one way about Skoronski, but I think if you get both of them, that's a tough thing. Now understand, Adebawore, he can go a little bit higher than this. So I will put him lower on my list of possibilities, but he's still on my big board just in case he slips. And I think the reason that he would slip is because you have to find the perfect team for him. I think he's not long enough to be on the edge, and I think he's not big enough to hold up as an every down run stopper at that 3-tech position. But I think it's interesting if you really want to add him for it, you know, that pass rushing specialty, because he's an athletic freak, twitchy, all things of that nature. I'm really wanting an edge player or a corner here. So let's look at the corners and the edges. You know, guys like Emmanuel Forbes, Kelly Ringo. I think he's going to go a bit higher despite the concerns of him, but there's some nice guys here. Julius Brents. Every team's talking about Julius Brents moving up, and I think he's one of those longer corners, could be solid in this scheme. DJ Turner. Got some nice guys, but overall, if I had to pick, I think I would go with Julius Brents as one of those possibilities on my big board, because I like Julius Brents, and I was one of the first on the Julius Brents hype train. I understand everybody's coming to him now. They watched his tape, they seen it all. They like his athleticism, like the length. I've been there. And I believe it or not, it was in my first mock draft with the Chicago Bears that I actually mocked Julius Brents to this team. So I knew about him a long time ago. And now, like I said, we have that. And I want to get another look at one more edge player for this possibility, because we're feeling really good about what we have in these possibilities, how this thing could turn out. I think Felix Anudike-Uzomah is another guy. My last guy I would have at this spot is going to be Tui Tuipulotu. And understand, I think he's a dog. If it were up to me, if I was the GM, he's a late first, high second. It's no more I can say than that. I've watched the tape. I seen him at the combine. I like everything I saw out of Uzomah, and he's going to be a great player for years to come. Now, getting into our next pick, we got the 61st overall. And like I said, I would keep it in that same rail of possibilities for players, because it's only a couple spots down. Now understand, you could package these picks and possibly move up to something if a Jalen Carter is in your, in your sights, if a player is in your sights. But I think if you still have these picks 54 and 61, I got the same possibilities for both of them. Now going over to this third round pick 64. This is where it gets kind of interesting. And I think it's still that same nature of players. We're still looking at edges. We can even look at offensive line again coming in here. Because even if we get Peter Skoronski or Paris Johnson, the work is not done. So getting into this pick right here, and a name automatically pops up into my head. I got to add Luke Weipler, because I see Luke Weipler, and let me know in the comments what you think about this. I kind of see a Jason Kelce. And, that may be Jason Kelce having the career that he's had, very decorated resume. But understand, when he came into the draft, he didn't have that resume. Luke Weipler, I think, is a starting center out of the gate. Now, the thing with Luke Weipler is he's kind of a smaller guy as far as weight, play strength. I don't think he's a, liability, but I do think what you want to do, it's rare that you get those centers that can go on the move. I think you can pull him. You have so much possibilities with him. I think he can get to the second level, get his hands on guys, and just get in the way. From the center position, that's what you need. Now, understand, if he goes against a Quinnen Williams, a Chris Jones, any of those guys lining up in the one, he may lose that matchup just off of a pure bull rush. But it was really winning consistent matchups against those guys. So that's what I think. He's a one possibility. Now, let's get into some other possibilities, because it's still pretty spicy right here. I think because if we don't get Jalen Carter, we still haven't addressed that 3-tech. Like I said, we could get Adebawore, but two guys that I like, actually three. I like Moro Ojomo, I like Carl Brooks, and I like Kobe Turner. Those are some guys I think can really get into a place like this. These are my guys, and this is overall what I'm thinking as far as all the possibility of picks I would make. So in the comments, let me know what you think about these players. Who would you draft? Who's automatically off your board? Who's somebody that I missed that can go on the board? Really some talking points, and I want to know, because we're trying to get this draft knocked out of the park. We're trying to win the NFC North. We're trying to make playoff contention, and this is how you do it. We attack the free agency. I like those moves. So now we're on to this. Really an in-depth video looking at all the players I think are possibilities, attacking all the needs I think we have to attack. And this is how we do it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And always, thank you for watching, Chicago Nation. We out.